Problem 7. Use a symbolic method to solve for the inequality. Then describe the solution. Set as an inequality in interval notation and in the graph. So we have a three-sided inequality, and what we want to do is we want to be able to write that out and then work with it and use the same inequality moves where whatever we do to one side we do to the other, except we have to look at it as three sides. So let me rewrite that here. 6 minus 2/3 x and 5. So our first step is to subtract 6 from both sides. So minus 6, minus 6, minus 6. By both sides I mean all three sides. And then we're going to get in the middle negative 2/3 x. And on this side we're going to let's take the right side. That's 5 minus 6, that's negative 1. And let's do this off to the side. This is a 1/3 minus 6 with a common denominator of 3. So 1/3 minus 18/3 is going to give a negative 17/3. Now our next step is to get rid of the negative 2/3 by multiplying this by negative 3/2. That will get rid of that. So whatever I do to one side I have to do to the other. But there's one more thing to be careful of here, and that is whenever we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to change the signs. So let's see how this is going to work out. The middle, which is where x is located, will now become an x, because we have a negative, negative, a positive, 2/3 and 3/2 is equal to 1, so that's x. Now let's change all the other signs around, and we'll talk about how we're going to need to rewrite this. If it's a less than sign, we can write it together as a string of inequalities with three expressions, but when the signs switch, then we're going to have to change how we write it. Let's take a look at the right hand side. We have a negative 1, negative 3/2, so that's going to be a positive 3/2. And when we look at the other side, we have the 3 and the 3 would cancel. We got 17/2, and that's a positive 17/2. So this is not exactly the best way to write this in terms of writing the solution set as an inequality, because if we look at this in a number line, we'll see that it's actually broken up. So let's do the graph first. The graph way of writing this, we have x is bigger than 3/2 and x is less than 17/2. So 3/2, let's anchor this with a 0. 3/2 would be in the positive side. Let's put 3/2 over here, and 17/2 is bigger than 3/2. So how would we shade this in? We have x is bigger than 3/2, strictly bigger, so that does not include the point. So I'll leave this circle an open circle, and it's bigger than 3/2. And I'll keep going as far as I need to. But now let me take a look at 17/2. This is saying x is less than 17/2. You kind of got to read it backwards. X is less than 17/2. So 17/2 over here less than or equal to, so we need to shade this in, and the less than sign goes this way. And so this is going to end up being an intersection between those two. And so it would be shaded this way. How's that going to look like with an interval notation? Well, with an interval notation, the interval notation would basically encapsulate the 3 halves and the 17 halves. Because it's together here, we can write this into one interval notation. If this was split up, then we'd have to write 2 interval notations with a union in between, but in this case it's just one. The 3 halves is not included. We'll use an open parentheses. The 17 halves is included. We'll use a square bracket. That is an interval notation. So finally, let's take a look at the inequality. And we generally don't want to write inequalities in this way. We want to go from the lesser value to the greater value. So the thing to do here was basically write this in order of from smallest to largest. So we got the 3 halves first, and then so the relationship between x and 3 halves is that 3 halves is less than x, or x is bigger than 3 halves. So we'll put the x there, and then the 17 halves, x is going to be less than 17 halves, less than or equal to 17 over 2. So that is your inequality, and this is the more proper way to write the inequality rather than what we got in the solution. Alright, so that's problem number 7.